Those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Pretti-Frontczak, and today I'm going to talk about some tips for writing more meaningful IEPs, but then I got distracted and I said, oh, I'm going to share some tips for promoting inclusion. So I decided to wear my superpower shirt from my fellow revolutionaries in Littleton, Colorado, to help me get through all the tips I want to share with you today and try to keep it under 20 minutes. So here's my plan. I'm going to start off with 3 tips for writing more meaningful IEPs. And you might be like, hey, you said you write 4. Well, I'm going to give you 4, but I'm going to start with 3. Then in between each of those tips, I'm going to share a little bit about a Q&A regarding an online class that I'm offering for writing more meaningful IEPs. And lots of people had lots of questions, so I thought let's just get them all answered. And then we'll end the broadcast with some tips for promoting inclusion, because so many of the overlap between writing a meaningful IEP is so that children and students have full access to, can participate in, and make progress towards appropriate daily activities. And so that would be an inclusive environment, an inclusive classroom, an inclusive program, an inclusive village, an inclusive community. So, okay, let's get started. So we're going to start off with some tips around writing more meaningful IEPs. And these tips come from the online course called Framework and Formula for Writing Meaningful IEPs. And you can learn more, and I got to look at the URL so I don't get it wrong, at christypf.com, I know that part, /join-IEP-online-course. So it's Join IEP Online Course with hyphens in between each of the words. So you can learn more about the course there. But each of these tips comes from the 4 modules. So the first thing is we need to know the difference between determining eligibility and writing a report, and when we change our hat and we're now writing a present level. So how do we know the difference, or why is it important? So the first tip to writing more meaningful IEPs is try not to write IEPs based upon evaluation reports, meaning we're not trying to reestablish eligibility. We're not trying to identify every single thing that the child might not be able to do and then dump that on the IEP. They're 2 separate decisions that teams make, sometimes the same people, but sometimes different people. So they're 2 different decisions. So my recommendation or my tip is try to write your evaluation report more like your present level than taking your evaluation report and copy and pasting it into your present level. That will start the flow, if you will, towards a more meaningful IEP, and you'll meet the criteria of a good present level, which is going to serve you really well in terms of all the subsequent decisions you're going to make. It's going to be that foundation. It's going to be that guide. It's going to be really specific. It's going to be all those things that you need to make really sound decisions about children's needs and what are IEP worthy goals. So that's your first tip, is to write your evaluation reports like a good present level. So it's just kind of a little bit backwards. So first question that people had about the online course, where in module 1 we talk about how to write a good present level and the difference between an evaluation report. And so the question is the online course applicable to me in my state? So this is really, the course is grounded in recommended practices sort of across students and children. However, it's really geared towards those of us living in the United States at the time of the creation of the class under federal law of IDEA 2004. So yes, it's applicable to anyone in the United States, territories, states, districts, counties, regions, parishes, right? So I'm trying to be as general as I could and really rely upon federal law, and then throw in some bonuses that would help you sort of navigate how your state law might be different. Though in most states, the state rules are really a duplication of IDEA 2004. States can always do more, but not less. So most just sort of copy and paste, speaking of copy and pasting. So it's not unique to one state or county or parish. It's really applicable across. And then we'll come to some other questions about age of kids that it covers as well. So the next thing, my second tip, is if you're going to write a meaningful IEP, especially the IEP worthy goals, you need to know the difference between wants and needs. And we talk about this all the time when we think about children's bodies responding to stress, but we also want to think about it in terms of the needs that you may have that result from the evaluation, which should be expansive, right? We should be looking at the whole child. We should be thinking about all areas of need. And then that allows us to say whether or not a child meets criteria for being eligible. When we take that hat off and put our IEP hat on, we're thinking about needs that make it through 4 filters. And so in the IEP online course, we really go through how do you kind of filter out expansive human needs versus needs that result from having a disability, those needs that are keeping you from accessing, participating, making progress in the general curriculum or appropriate daily activities, or just needs that result from having a disability. That all said, wants are separate. Wants are things that, well, we want, right? Like 2 scoops of ice cream. That's not really what we're thinking about. So that means that what do we want for children? Sure, we can have a vision, we can have dreams, we can have expectations and common outcomes, but we shouldn't be thinking about those wants as IEP-worthy goals. So that's your tip number 2, is know the difference between wants and needs, and then when you think about needs, separate out needs that may have been sort of holistic in the evaluation and what gets filtered for the IEP. So that brings us to our second question from people about the IEP online course, and they said, will I get credit? Will I get a certificate? Will it be approved in my district for continuing studies? Well, as you know, most things are locally driven across the United States, so it's really hard to come up with something that every district or every region will approve. But if you need my help getting approval in your local area, just reach out and we'll see what we can do. For those of you living in Alaska and those of you living in Iowa, I'm in conversations with your state to be able to offer things for credit and or for sort of approval at the state level. And if any of you are state level decision makers and want to talk to me about how to make this available for providers in your region, just let me know. But in general, my great revolutionary friend Ashley Lyons and I are working on a way that you can accumulate little badges as you make your way through the modules, and then you'll get a certificate of completion. So once the early bird special is over for the online class and it's all complete, there'll be a way for you to, at a minimum, get a certificate from me, and then you can use that to aim to get continuing ed. And then, like I said, in a few states, we're working hard to get you college credit. So tip number 3 about writing meaningful IEPs. This one is about really knowing about the criteria. And so this is the 3rd module in the IEP online class, and I'm working on it today, so I should have come right off the top of my head. But it's this balance between what will convince me that a child is making adequate progress and what is doable in terms of monitoring and keeping up with the measurement. And so I really want to encourage people to use both numbers and words, so describe performance over time as well as quantifiable, though many states love percentages, but they're sort of the kiss of death in monitoring our progress or our performance towards something. So we want to think more holistically and use descriptions of how children will perform as well as numbers. And so module number 3 in the IEP online course goes into great detail about how you can use both numbers and how you can use words or descriptions that will let you know that a child has made progress over time. So that's your third tip. Okay, question number 3 is why should I take the online class, and especially why should I get it now? I'm super busy. I don't have time to take an online class, but right now you can save $100 because I'm kind of building it while I'm sharing it to you, sort of like in a beta test to make sure that everything is fabulous, everything works, and everything meets your needs. And like I said, I've got 4 more lessons to go out of 12. Maybe in the next few days they'll be done. But if you order it now, you can save $100 and you can get started. And so I want you to think of the online class as something that you can just like pick and choose. It's available to you 24/7. So even if you order it now and don't even look at it until IEP season in the spring, totally cool, right? It's not going anywhere. It'll just be sitting there waiting for you in your inbox. I'll email you every once in a while, ask you how you're doing, but don't worry, that's not pressure. It's just a reminder that it's waiting for you in your inbox. So my advice is get it now. Then you can sort of start making a plan for those of you who coach others, for those of you who might be doing professional development around IEPs. If you want to do something that's more than just compliance and filling out the form, you're definitely going to want this online course because we talk about all kinds of things that are what matters in terms of writing a more meaningful IEP for, in particular, young children and preschool age children. Okay, so I've given you 3 tips for writing meaningful IEPs. I've told you you can get the online class at christypf.com/IEP nope, I knew I was going to get it wrong, join-IEP-online-course. And you can save $100, and it doesn't matter what state or region or parish you live in, and it's something that is designed to help all of us think about moving towards, again, what matters. So now my 4 tips for promoting inclusion, and hopefully I haven't taken your entire Saturday getting there. I'm talking like so quickly. So because I started off saying, oh, let's meet on Saturday and answer some questions about the IEP online course, I was going to offer the tips about writing IEPs. And then I got distracted and I thought, oh, we need to have tips about promoting inclusion because I've been traveling a lot these last few weeks and not seeing nearly enough inclusion for my taste. So I thought, oh, we need to get out there and, as part of the revolution, keep talking about promoting inclusive practices. So I'm going to give you 4, and the 4th one is sort of the same for writing more meaningful IEPs as well as promoting inclusion. So you all know that yet my first mantra, my first recommendation, no matter what, is always about mindset before method. But you're going to be like, Christy, we've heard you say that forever, but people won't drink my Kool-Aid. People won't buy in. People are so resistant. So this last week, I had this great opportunity, and later today I have an opportunity to talk to 4 more amazing leaders in Colorado, and they taught me some things about facing resistance. And so as I thought about that first tip to promote inclusion, that mindset before method, I thought, okay, what can I offer you that I haven't said before? So I wrote these down because I learned it from fellow revolutionaries in the great state of Colorado. So first they said, when you face resistance, ask questions. And I'm like, well, okay, but what would I ask? And so one revolutionary had this fabulous question that they asked themselves. They said, do you, meaning the person that is facing, like being resistant, do they have the information they need? So they really turned it around. They didn't just say to the person who was being resistant, what do you need? What's your problem? Why won't you drink my Kool-Aid, right? Which were my questions. They really turned it around and said, okay, I got to think about it. What might this person be missing? What information might they need to be able to take the next step forward? So I thought that was a great way to think about changing someone's mindset without just going, what's wrong with you? The second idea said, kill them with kindness. And I thought, but we don't like people that resist us. We don't really want to be kind to them. So what can we do in terms of killing them with kindness? And she further said, you just start with where they are. As hard and as backwards as that might feel to you, it's really about understanding and being compassionate and expressing kindness for where they are right now. And how can you get them and offer them a hand to take one step forward, not maybe 8 leaps. And then the third idea of mindset before method, I have all these notes, was to learn more about where they're coming from. And so while this sounds a little bit about the other 2, it was really focusing on relationships first. When you face that resistance, do the work. Do you have a strong relationship with this person or this group of people? Do they really understand why this is important to you, why it's important to your community, and have you done the work to foster those relationships? So that's your first tip for promoting inclusive practices, mindset before method, and we're going to ask questions about what do they need, we're going to kill them with kindness, and then we're going to foster relationships. Second tip is to do that clean sweep. And so in our Facebook group a couple of weeks ago, we dug deep into the clean sweep. You can get it on the prekteachandplay.com site as well, but I just wanted to remind you a couple things. Reduce stressors, and some of you have been listening to me talk about that a lot. So a new angle on that, I read an article last night about how stress can be a good thing and a bad thing. And so some of you feel anxious when you can't remove the stressors. You're not in control of the stressors. But if we can make stress more of something that presents a challenge that's intriguing and curiosity building versus toxic or something that feels like a threat. So you can't maybe control all of the stressors, but if you can start to shape it and allow a child to see this as a challenge, not a toxic threat, then you don't have to necessarily remove the stressor. But it's us there supporting the child, knowing that they can do this. They can do this hard thing, that while it might be noisy or loud or confusing, you're there. So it's not that you can remove the other children from the classroom or cater to each individual child simultaneously. But what can you do to support a child when they experience those stressors to feel more like a challenge that they can take on and be successful versus it's toxic and stressful? And so just wanted to, maybe I'll just leave it at that one thing, is that keep reducing those stressors as you do a clean sweep of the learning environment, whether that's be the home, the community, or the classroom, and think about, if I can't remove or reduce the stressors, can I reframe them so that a child knows that they're supported in a way that's a challenge, but they can be successful? Okay, tip number 3. Don't just teach differently, teach something different. So right as we closed up our Facebook group, a fellow revolutionary asked about, should I have the same expectations at circle time for children with IEPs? I'm going to do a long rant about that in an upcoming podcast about equity and equality. And I have a new twist on it that I pitched to some revolutionaries in Durango. And they were like, yep, makes sense. I'm going to try that in a couple of days. So be watching for it. But the idea is that we don't want to just teach differently, which is great. We don't want to just teach different outcomes at the same time, which is super great. But we want to make sure that we're teaching the right outcomes at the right time. So it's a really complex dance that we do between understanding what children are interested in, what they're ready for, what we want to teach, and then pushing that all together. But the easy answer is certainly we have different expectations for different children in the same activity. We just need to get clear with one another on what are those expectations. And then we got to peel it back until we find that sweet spot for all children so that they're in that zone of proximal development most of the time. Okay, that brings us to our 4th and final tip, which is the same whether you're writing more meaningful IEPs or if you are promoting inclusion. And so that tip is you gotta know development. And I hate to say that because people are like, oh, that's not helpful at all. But it means that you really need to understand children, watch them, see where they are, do what you can to find some really good learning trajectories. Don't really rely on age equivalencies and milestones, but rather understand how constructs either sequentially, step by step, evolve or manifest in human development, or how they simultaneously or concurrently evolve in or manifest in early development. And so really understand, are you looking at something in a sequence, or are you looking at something simultaneous? There's pieces and parts. And maybe just that, just watching kids and learn from them about how they're learning and say, wow, did they go milestone by milestone by milestone? Did something go from early or easier to later to harder? Or were things happening concurrently so that cognition and language and symbolic play were 3 parallel tracks? And if one of those tracks is kind of weak or off, I know the other 2 are going to be weak or off as well. So how do I concurrently support 3 major areas of development: language and cognition and symbolic play? So we want to make sure that we're looking at the whole child and really thinking about how does development unfold. And then knowing that there are some differences. When you have a visual impairment, you're going to hit different milestones in a predictable yet different way. If you're a simultaneous versus a sequential language learner, there are different milestones. So really become an observer of children, of your children, and really understand, are they kind of going step by step, or are they learning things concurrently? So there you have it. Those are my 8-ish tips today for writing more meaningful IEPs and for promoting inclusion. And if you want to learn more, you can always go to prekteachandplay.com, dig around in the shop, look at the blog, look at the podcast. A new one will be out in a few days around equality versus equity. But more importantly, I really invite you to dig into the IEP Online Course. So that's christypf.com/join-IEP-online-course. I think I got it. And that will give you 12 lessons eventually. 8 of them are ready right now. I think I got a 9th one posted this morning. And you can get that early bird rate for a little bit longer, where you save $100 while we're sort of just kind of making our way through and making sure everything is perfect for you. But if you have any questions at all, if you want me to talk to anybody in your district or your region or your state about making this available for you for credit, for continuing ed, let me know. Otherwise, Ashley and I will keep working on the gaming side of it so you can get some badges and a certificate of completion. So my gratitude to each of you revolutionaries, and let me know if there's anything else you need.